Now, you also want to think about what your cover might look like once you have developed the content. And some people actually have an idea early on as to what they'd like to see in the form of a cover. Many writers will work with and hire professional book cover designers to try to bring their ideas to life. Now, one thing that you might want to consider doing, by the way, when you're actually writing, and that is when you're in the process of writing, whether you're at the beginning or the end, what you want to consider is creating a prototype cover. In other words, something that has the title that you can wrap around a stack of papers that actually looks like a book, so that you get that vision of your book as being finished, even if that's not going to be the final cover. I did that with with the very first book, and it was really powerful to be able to see the title in the size of book that I was hoping to produce. Anyway, that can be very helpful. But anyway, with reference to title, you'll want to do research in your area for keywords. You will also, in terms of the cover, want to see what you're drawn to or what speaks to you. And so again, this is information that you can share with other people, other writers, or people that you know whose opinions you trust. So anyway, if you have, for example, 3 sample covers that you are going to select from, you're able to say which one appeals most to you, and kind of survey people to get some feedback. Ultimately, what's most important is that you are satisfied with the title and that you are satisfied with the cover. I always like to get feedback from others before making my final decision. Another thing that we should talk about is formatting. And whether you're submitting a manuscript to a publisher, whether it's an independent publisher or an established publisher, or whether you're publishing it yourself, you will need to determine what the size of book is. They call it trim size is the appropriate language to use for that. And mine are usually 5 by 8. But there are many people who swear by 6 by 9. And so anyway, you'll have to determine trim size that you want to use. And then the book manuscript has to be formatted. And the formatting may be a little more complex or less complex depending on what you want to include. But book formatting is fairly standardized across the board. Really, the only decisions that you're going to have to make are whether you want to have the title or the chapter titles along the top in the header and other things such as that. There are professional book formatting people out there who are available again for hire. I had my first book formatted, and then I later learned to format books myself, and so I didn't have to do that after that point in time. This brings us to the subject of submission. And I mentioned previously that if you are submitting to a major publishing house, they will usually only consider books that are submitted by literary agents. And so therefore, the first thing you have to accomplish, if that's the direction that you want to take, is to submit to a literary agent. But you'll need to pay attention for the submission requirements that literary agents require when you are soliciting them to be your agent. And so what that means is that you will need to submit information to them, your manuscript, certain number of chapters with a specific query letter that has very specific information in it. So you'll need to you'll need to read their submission guidelines prior to submitting to a literary agency. Publishers, those who don't necessarily require that you have a literary agency, also have submission guidelines. So you'll want to educate yourself on which publishers publish in your genre, and then you'll also want to know what their submission guidelines are. Finally, with reference to submitting a manuscript to a print-on-demand publisher or through self-publishing, again, they have very specific guides, and usually guides that will help you produce what it is that you need to produce in the form of files, the manuscript file and the cover file, so that you can then move forward to publication.